Do you own a home or have plans to in the future? Don't miss the Dino and Nelson Show, Sunday afternoons at 1 p.m. on Money Radio, KTLK AM 1150. You'll get all the information you need to know about what's happening in the local real estate market and how to take advantage of that knowledge. How to approach home ownership or mortgage financing with design, vision, and focus, as well as accurate information. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, listen to Real Estate Radio with Dino and Nelson Sunday afternoons at 1 p.m. right here on Money Radio, KTLK, AM 1150.
Good afternoon, Southern California. This is Dino from the Dino and Nelson Show here on KTalk AM 1150 every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. We can be reached at 888-814-3335, 888-814-3335, or at the DinoandNelsonShow.com.
Dino, I'm really excited about this show. We have a couple of guests here today that are going to light it up. So let's get through a couple of news and notes that I saw, but do it quickly. Is that all right with you?
Can you do it quickly? Because
you're
the talker in the group.
No, I know that.
Okay,
and I'm the interesting one in the group. But yes, I can do it. So here we go. Out of the LA Times, B of A, they made headlines again. They part of the settlement, the $25 billion settlement against homeowners or in favor of homeowners. They're forgiving loan balances. And on average, they're going back to 200,000 of their clients and on average forgiving $150,000 on their mortgage.
So I read that myself. So on the average, you keep saying they're doing this or doing that. Have they actually started giving the money away and they've been doing it for how long now?
I don't know if they've actually started.
What they're
initiating. They're initiating the contact for these 200,000 people, but $150,000 gift. I don't know. It brings up a question to me in terms of there's so much attention on the predatory lending. That's all right. Just keep going. You know what I'm talking about. and the homeowner, the borrower being victimized, and part of me. There clearly are examples of that, but another part of me thinks that homeowners had to know what they were doing at some point, right? They're not just the innocent victim.
Well, it's funny because our guests that are coming on later, the entire car ride up here, I had to sit and listen to them argue this fact. So we'll let them argue that fact a little later.
I just teed that up for them.
Okay, yeah, good. But so this whole B of A thing, I actually posted it on my Facebook. And asked if anybody has been contacted or if anybody is going through this process. I'm curious to find out what exactly is going to happen. So to all the listeners as well, do me a favor. If you are a part of this with Bank of America, log on to our site, thedinoandnelsonshow.com, and contact me. Let me know. Either send me an email or call me. 888-814-3335. I'm really curious to know, and I'd like to spread that to the rest of the listeners here.
So another article that I saw out of the Washington Post was about this real estate app that has been released. And the real estate app, unlike some of the real estate platforms, that they allow you to snap a photo with your iPhone of the home, and it brings up all of that home's history, public records, images. I mean, it's kind of invasive to me.
Wait, what? So somebody drives down the street, takes a picture of a home?
Right, and this application then pulls up all the data that's on public record about that home.
Like something we would pull up being in the industry or something like Zillow?
Well, I think it's primarily used for Zillow-based kinds of information. It's listing history, if it's obviously for sale or for lease.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, I just think it's, what if it's pulling up public record? Would you feel comfortable with that?
Well, if it's public record, it's public record. Right?
Well, yes, is the answer to that question. But on public record, even though there's public access, with tax liens that are posted or bankruptcy filings or foreclosure filings, would you want all that just with a snap of a photo?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Can we move on?
Yeah, we sure can. Hey, let's talk a little bit about mortgages. Rates have dropped once more. 15-year rates down to just a nick above 3%. 30-year mortgages are still down below 4%. And 5-year fixed-rate mortgages hovering pretty much the same range, around 2.8%. But it's still this fabulous money that's available.
I don't know what you did this week. I actually locked every single one of the deals I have in the pipeline this week.
And I remember you talking about that. Why'd you do that?
Just it's been on a high. This is the best it's been in several months.
Right.
And I just figured there's a lot of financial data coming out. and I'm not going to take the chance. It's been too good. It's been too good for too long.
There's more to lose and less to gain.
Yeah, and we should have been better than what we were according to what was going on in the market, but it hit that ceiling, and we couldn't break through it. So I think there's a much better chance for it to go the wrong way and rates to go up again. And when I say up, maybe a quarter point, but
still higher.
It's still higher.
Yeah, and
so
I argue
take the chance.
And I argue the same point. Just get while the getting's good and go with the rate guarantee so you know what's waiting for you at the finish line. Take the money and run.
Absolutely. And if any of you listeners are interested in refinancing or purchasing a home, or just have any questions regarding loan modification or anything like that, contact us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or you can log on to the DinoandNelsonShow.com. We'll be right back with Bill Baskin from CDA Law Center regarding loan modifications.
You want to invest in today's real estate market and take advantage of the low values, but the property needs work. What do? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer with its market-exclusive 100% rehab program. The Polaris loan covers the purchase price, down payment, rehab budget, 6 months of interest, and lender's costs, all in exchange for a profit split between you and us. Call Polaris Equity Group to hear more about it. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Take advantage of their exclusive 100% rehab program. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com.
Is there really a simple mortgage process? The answer is yes. At First Centennial Mortgage, our customers save money and close their loans quickly because we use the most advanced mortgage technology available and deliver the best rates and terms as a result, offering 30-year fixed rates below 4% and 10-year fixed rates below 3%, all guaranteed on the kickoff of your application. Call 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or apply online at thedinoandnelsonshow.com.
We have reviewed your application for credit, and at this time, we are unable to approve you. The dreaded credit denial letter. You've had strong credit, but life got in the way and companies are turning you down. The Dino and Nelson Show has a solution with Saving My Credit. Saving My Credit offers highly skilled specialists and a research methodology that is consistently applied to improving your financial situation. Nagging collection accounts, late pays, tax liens, bankruptcies, charge-offs are some of the many examples of negative reporting that leads to credit denial. Saving My Credit applies rigorous energy, experience, and resourcefulness to raise your credit score. Your credit is approved. It would feel so much better, wouldn't it? Contact Saving My Credit at 714-699-4680 or savingmycredit.com. That's 714-699-4680, 714-699-4680, or online at savingmycredit.com. The Dino and Nelson Show is brought to you by Best Chauffeured. Best Chauffeured offers personal chauffeur services for corporate events, large and small, and all types of people, not just celebrities. So next time you just want to relax and enjoy the ride, please call on Best Chauffeured Worldwide. It's effortless transportation and first-class service every time. Call 866-323-BEST. That's 866-323-BEST, or online at bestchauffeured.com. Mention KTLK's Dino and Nelson Show and receive a special discount. 866-323-BEST, or online at bestchauffeured.com.
This is Nelson from the Dino and Nelson Show, and finally, a reputable legal firm. CDA Law Center, a nationally recognized nonprofit homeowner advocate, one of the most trusted firms in the country for helping consumers with their loan modification process. CDA's attorneys have decades of combined experience guiding their clients through the very complex and choppy waters of loan modification. Call 877-499-4435. 877-499-4435. Finally, honest and ethical advice to gain real results. Call CDA Law Center at 877-499-4435 or online at cdalawcenter.com.
Welcome back to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. We have a special guest here today, Mr. Bill Baskin, Director of Operations from CDA Law Center, one of the most reputable law firms specializing in loan modifications. I personally have stopped referring my clients out to loan modification companies several years ago just because of the bad reputation that eventually ended up coming on me because they were such scam artists. And then I was introduced to Bill, did my research on him, actually tried with just a couple key clients and did a bang up job. And now I'm a CDA Law Center fan. So Mr. Bill Baskin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dino. I appreciate you having me on today.
You're welcome.
I think that that's the biggest misnomer out there of this modifications. Are they for real or are they not? I think that we've even spoken in some of the shows previously on a very small percentage of people that are successfully getting modifications. So I just wanted to break through some of the barriers here with what's fact, what's fiction. I wanted to get your reaction to a couple of things. We heard a stat that there was less than 4% of applied for modifications approved. Is that for real, or is it a greater percentage?
Well, it's actually greater than that, but it's still somewhat poor results. The U.S. Department of Treasury every quarter comes out with something called the HAMP report, and of the people eligible for modification, 2/3 are failing to get one. And primarily, I really go back to President Obama on this. You know, he told borrowers to reach out to your lender; they're there to help. Well, you're in a negotiation with a lender, and you're asking that lender to lose money on your particular loan. They are not there to teach you how to do this so they can lose money on your situation. And it's an underwriting conversation. And most people just quite honestly aren't prepared and certainly don't understand the financials that they have to provide to qualify. You know, it's a hardship program. There's certain things you have to prove to get a loan modification.
But it's a huge difference, even in that reference. Less than 4% versus 33%. I mean, that's a huge gap of what people perceive out there.
Oh, the statistics are abysmal. You referenced the DOJ settlement earlier in the news segment. And
this is with B of A, the Department of Justice.
Well, it's actually with the 5 major lenders: Wells Fargo, Chase, Citi, B of A, and so on. But they were quoted in the DOJ settlement to have unsafe and unsound practices with respect to loan modifications. Hundreds of thousands of people have been denied for loan modifications, even though they qualified for the program. And a lot of this kind of goes back to Treasury when they rolled it out back in February of 2009.
And a graphic experience that I heard of someone that had a modification approved with the institution in writing on one side and the home being sold on the court steps on the other.
Oh, it happens every day.
From the same department, and not the same department, same company, but the left side not knowing what the right side was doing.
Oh, that's exactly the case. I think I use that line on a daily basis around the office. That you have to understand that, Bank of America, as an example, has 430,000 odd employees, multiple divisions spread across the country. They've outsourced a lot of this work to third parties who represent themselves as B of A employees, but they're actually contractors for B of A. In addition to that, you're dealing with different segments. There's home equity division, there's home loan division. They operate on separate P&Ls. They're incestuous. They don't talk to each other. Meanwhile, you have these foreclosure mills who are highly incentivized to push these foreclosures through. The whole thing is a mess. And the banks went on record when they rolled out HAMP that they weren't prepared to handle this program. But, Treasury kind of shoved it down their throats. And in 2007, Bank of America had 4 total people in their loss mitigation department. Today, they have 35,000. So, a ramp up of that scale and scope is an operational nightmare, even for somebody as big as Bank of America.
And just for our listeners, HAMP, what does that stand for?
Home Affordable Modification Program. Commonly referred to as the Obama plan, but everything's the Obama something these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Folks, if you need more specific information on loan modifications, look us up on our website, thedinoandnelsonshow.com, or call us at 888-814-3335, and we'll put you in touch with CDA Law Center, truly the professionals in loan modifications.
I had another couple of quick questions. In terms of the modification, does it impact your credit? Is it a negative that you get a loan modified?
It does indirectly. To understand how a modification works, first of all, you have to understand it's a hardship program. We have to prove to the bank 3 basic things. One, that there's a hardship related to the mortgage payment itself in terms of your debt to income ratios. We get calls all the time from people who are underwater but may not necessarily have a hardship specific to the mortgage. Their hardship may be because of their other expenses. They're living beyond their means in areas that have nothing to do with the mortgage payment. So, we do a very careful vetting of clients, and, we're applying for a government program. It's you have to meet guidelines. There's no latitude for making exceptions when it comes to a government program. So we turn down 60 to 70% of the people who want a lower mortgage payment. And frankly, I've never met anybody who didn't want a lower mortgage payment. But, we have to vet those people who need one compared to those people who want one. And it's all ratio based. I mean, we have a very strong understanding of what the guidelines are, and the majority of our clients get the outcome they're looking for.
But at least it's just that you're not having them chasing rainbows like so many of these modification organizations, where they're out there getting false promises on, we're going to reduce your principal, we're going to drop your interest rate to nothing, the bank's going to pay you to live in the property, all of those kinds of gross exaggerations. But expectations that the consumer has, generally speaking, just because their home is underwater.
Oh, yeah. No, I get calls all the time. I mean, you'd be amazed how many times I've been pitched for a loan modification by a guy who doesn't have the first clue. I've schooled people on my cell phone a lot of times, but, promising, this rate, this principal reduction. What people have to understand that is, this is a negotiation with your lender. You don't hire an attorney when the outcome you're looking for is easy to achieve or certain. You only hire an attorney when the outcome is uncertain and probably not easy to achieve.
Right.
And, we disclose to all of our clients that this is a negotiation with your lender. They're only required to review you for a mod. There's no requirement that they actually give you one. And, people come to us say, well, the government bailed out the banks with TARP money. I deserve my modification.
Right,
well,
right.
Unfortunately, you don't.
Yeah. And Dino mentioned this, but I mean, a clear distinction that your company, the CDA Law Center, is just that. It's a legal firm. There's a lot of other people playing in this space, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of DRE licensees that are doing modifications, and there's different rules and regulations for DRE licensees compared to attorneys. We're more than happy to discuss that with anybody who's interested. And our job really is, as a law firm, we're not there to sell anybody on anything. We have an ethical duty to provide them the information they need so they can make an educated decision about what's best for their particular family and their situation. So, we take great pains to do a complete financial analysis, underwrite the file. We even have access to the banking software, loan disposition analysis software that determines eligibility for HAMP. So
that you were mentioning that in the car. I actually didn't know what that was. That seems to be the big real positive thing you guys have versus maybe a lot of your competition, because you guys know whether or not a loan modification is going to get approved, or I shouldn't say that. You know what it's going to take. And what kind of a modification can get approved, so you're not chasing rainbows, right?
Oh, absolutely. When we fail, it's for one of two reasons. Either our client materially misrepresented their situation in terms of their financials. A modification is all derived from the gross income of the borrower. In addition to that, every once in a while you run into investor issues. Most people don't realize, for example, if you have a Bank of America loan, Bank of America does not own that loan. It's actually owned by a third-party investor, typically part of a securitized trust, and there's no fiduciary. I mean, these are bondholders. They bought guaranteed income on what they thought was a AAA-rated bond. And, they didn't buy homes. They don't want homes, but they hired, a servicer, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera, to service these loans. And, there's only certain conditions in which a lender can modify the terms of that loan, and it's typically in the instance of a default. There's a trigger in something called the pooling and servicing agreement, which defines the relationship between the investor and the servicer. When a borrower goes into default and HAMP requires that you be 60 days behind, that this trigger of default allows the lender to modify the repayment terms of that loan as long as it's in the best financial interest of the investor. So if you have significant equity in your home, for example, when you fall behind, the lender has to assume you're headed to a foreclosure. And what they do is something called the net present value analysis. And it's basically a cash flow algorithm of the value of money looking into the future. And one of the things we have to prove to the lender is that the net present value of your loan is positive. In other words, the investor who owns the loan is going to make more money modifying that loan than foreclosing on the property. That's why equity is a deal killer, because if they can get all of their unpaid principal balance back, there's no reason they should take a loss on the repayment terms.
And so relative to the cost of foreclosure, I read earlier this week that the cost of foreclosure on average, and I don't know if this was California or countrywide, but it was $60,000 as a cost to the lender to actually foreclose or execute a foreclosure. Does that sound right, or is that?
That could be right. Third-party legal fees, and there's a lot of nonsense fees and a lot of things that go on there. But there was an interesting study by a Harvard professor. They looked at in the Boston area, what was the cost of foreclosure to the community, and the cost of the foreclosure to the community was actually over $1 million per foreclosure. When you look at the ripple effect on the economy, the tax base, and everything else that's involved.
Wow, wow.
So on the HAMP program specifically, now that acronym is thrown out there. We now understand what it is. Mm-hmm. Is that the only program?
No,
you're
absolutely.
either in for HAMP or you're out?
No. There's now you only get one bite at the apple at HAMP, and this is why borrowers really, unless they have an underwriting background, shouldn't do this themselves. If you apply for a HAMP and fail, that is removed as an option for you. You have to. The banks have internal programs that are, very much similar to HAMP, but allow more latitude to make exceptions, whereas with HAMP, they can't make exceptions. So there are programs the borrower can apply for.
So, Bill, what do you recommend for people? Now, I know you just said unless you have an underwriting background, but I would assume most people don't. Do you just suggest they absolutely, without a doubt, do not try and do this themselves, or seek professional advice?
Oh, well, I've been doing this.
You're making money
self-serving,
at it. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, is it that difficult to go in and do it yourself?
Well, let's just put it this way. I'm clearly well versed on these programs. I would not modify my own loan modification. We have underwriters that negotiate with these banks. If you go back to my earlier example of the ramp up of loss mitigation at Bank of America, the problem is, many of these people are poorly trained, not a lot of experience, very high turnover. You're dealing with people that, they're losing their home. They're losing their minds, calling every day. So with this very high turnover, you get underwriters sometimes that are inexperienced. And, the key to getting a successful loan modification is establishing income. And if the lender's making mistakes in terms of calculating the various debt ratios, the income, you get a different outcome than what you expect. And a big part of our job is to make sure that the bank is landing on the right numbers. They're deriving the same outputs that we are. So the result is what we expect. And, most borrowers don't have an underwriting background. I mean, if you've never heard the term front-end debt to income, if you don't know what your back-end debt to income ratio needs to be, if you don't understand net present value, what exactly are you negotiating
can you navigate
for?
Those
right.
waters?
It's a very complex process, and by sending people with arms wide open to their bank to teach them how to do this, that's why 66% of people fail.
This is what I think is just fascinating. Really some key information to ferret out here where reality lies. I think that's absolutely critical for our listeners.
No, you're absolutely right. And, I do loans for a living, so I'm used to dealing with underwriters. I'm used to packaging. I'm used to doing things the right way. I remember trying to do this for my own. I got so frustrated that it blew everything out of the water because I couldn't deal with incompetent people, because that's really what they were on the other end.
And you were speaking their language.
And I was, unfortunately, they couldn't even speak the language because they were probably $10 an hour people looking at some checklist and they freaked out because there was one document missing and they couldn't make any decisions. So then I was trying to be kind to some of my clients and I'd help them out. And I don't know, 6 months later, I finally decided there is no way I'm ever going to do this again. I have to leave this in the hands of somebody else that does this for a living, because all it was pure frustration for me. And if I'm kind of in this business, so to speak, I can't imagine a regular consumer calling up and trying to deal with all this. So anyways, for more information on CDA Law Center, look us up at thedinoandnelsonshow.com, and they're right there on the homepage, or you can call us at 888-814-3335, 888-814-3335. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay tuned.
In a chaotic real estate market, you want peace of mind when it comes to the home you're purchasing. Roadrunner Exterminating, a family-owned and operated company providing structural repairs, local treatments, and fumigation. Roadrunner Exterminating is a licensed, bonded, and insured expert in termite, pest control, and general contracting. For fast and efficient service, plus the peace of mind of knowing the condition of your new home, call Roadrunner Exterminating at 866-398-BUGS. That's 866-398-BUGS. Or on the web at roadrunnerexterminating.com. As always, mention the Dino and Nelson Show and get a free home inspection. 866-398-BUGS or roadrunnerexterminating.com. General Contractor License 922404. Nominal fee for escrow inspections.
Is there really a simple mortgage process? The answer is yes. At First Centennial Mortgage, Our customers save money and close their loans quickly because we use the most advanced mortgage technology available and deliver the best rates and terms as a result, offering 30-year fixed rates below 4% and 10-year fixed rates below 3%, all guaranteed on the kickoff of your application. Call 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335 or apply online at thedinoandnelsonshow.com.
The Dino and Nelson Show is brought to you by Best Chauffeured. Best Chauffeured offers personal chauffeur services for corporate events, large and small, and all types of people, not just celebrities. So next time you just want to relax and enjoy the ride, please call on Best Chauffeured Worldwide. It's effortless transportation and first-class service every time. Call 866-323-BEST. That's 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com. Mention KTLK's Dino and Nelson Show and receive a special discount. 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com. You want to invest in today's real estate market and take advantage of the low values, but the property needs work. What do? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer with its market-exclusive 100% rehab program. The Polaris loan covers the purchase price, down payment, rehab budget, 6 months of interest, and lender's costs, all in exchange for a profit split between you and us. Call Polaris Equity Group to hear more about it. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Take advantage of their exclusive 100% rehab program. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com.
Welcome back to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. 814-3335 or at thedinoandnelsonshow.com. In case you just jumped in your car, we've been speaking to Bill Baskin from CDA Law Center, specialist in loan modifications. And one of the big questions, Bill, that I have from my clients is there's so many scams out there, so many just unreputable companies. How does one do their research and investigation and figure out who is the right company?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You do your research. You don't see a lot of information in the mainstream media about this. Mainstream media has to pay advertisers, many of whom are financial institutions. The blogs, sites like Mandelman Matters or Home Preservation Network or AbigailFields.com. A lot of these bloggers are very up on this. But if you're actually talking to a firm, one, they should be doing a comprehensive financial analysis. Two, they should have a significant amount of positive reviews from past clients that you can read. Don't always believe the negative reviews because, you get complaints. It's become very acceptable to blame your attorney for anything that goes wrong with the modification process.
You don't get what you want, which might be a 2% interest rate, 40-year, you don't get it and you're going to complain. Right. There's always those people.
Absolutely. We occasionally get complaints, from people who we achieved a mod for. They got a better interest rate than we even told them that we would likely get them. Yet, they heard their neighbor got a 2% rate, maybe a better rate than their 3% that they got, and they complain that, they didn't get the best rate possible. Well, this isn't a refinance. This is an affordability program.
It's a rescue program.
Exactly. It's a hardship program. You get the payment you can afford, not the best, lowest rate. And HAMP has something called the waterfall. And the way HAMP works is it models you to 31% of your gross income. So, that varies for everybody. And your total housing obligation would be that 31%. And it would not be just the mortgage payment. It would also be property taxes, homeowners insurance, and possibly your HOA if you have one.
I just am astonished that people would complain after getting something that's a relief in any version of what can be done with a lower payment or a longer repayment period. It's like you're drowning out in the ocean and you're going to complain on what kind of boat comes to save you. That doesn't make sense.
Well, we bailed out the banks and, we gave them TARP money. They got $17 trillion in interest-free money from the Fed. People believe since we bailed out the banks, I deserve my modification. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. You have to qualify. We have to prove hardship. We have to prove capacity to pay, and obviously NPV, which I alluded to earlier. But when choosing a firm to represent you, you have to make sure that they're not trying to oversell you on this. They should be pointing out where the risks lie in this process because there are risks to getting the outcome you're looking for. I would ask every firm that you talk to, can I come in and meet with the attorney? If there's any hesitation at all, run like the wind. Many of these firms, are attorney-based, attorney-backed, don't have attorneys on premises to sit with and counsel, their clients. Our
so
attorneys
they just have legal alliances.
Yeah, and it's well documented. You have to be careful. They should be able to provide you recent modifications. We get 2 or 3 modifications done a day at our firm. I can show you an example from yesterday, probably from your bank, of a modification we achieved for a borrower. Now, obviously, we have to redact the personal information because of attorney-client privilege, but the proof's in the pudding. I mean,
right.
A lot of these strategies, a lot of firms out there selling lawsuits, for example. Well, in California, most of these lawsuits are not working. A lot of these exotic chain of title defenses, MERS defenses, predatory lending defenses,
right,
statute of limitations is expired on most of those. But, it's a great way to get fees out of somebody. But, ask to see a case that they've won. The proof's in the pudding.
Right.
Ask to see, do your homework. That's the one thing I could tell consumers, do your homework.
And in terms of other problems, we talked a little bit about the advice that's out there and how it can impact your credit. You mentioned that HAMP has as a qualifier, you have to show distress. You have to show that the payment is in arrears and supposedly on its way to foreclosure. But that advice is just cast out there to everyone. You got to be late, whether they're eligible for HAMP or not.
No, that's correct. And listen, the only thing your FICO score is good for is getting more credit. And if you can't afford the credit you have, your FICO score has zero value to you. So if you truly are in a hardship situation, I would be less concerned with your FICO score, because obviously the fact that you're going late does have credit impact. The mortgage is the biggest trade line on your credit bureau. So it has much bigger impact than, say, going late on a credit card. But conversely, once you get modified, you have lower repayment terms, your debt to income ratios get lowered. That actually drives up your credit score. And the fact that you're brought current on the loan and repaying it also drives up credit pretty quickly.
Are the modifications working, and the success stories that you have of people that get into new terms, are they actually getting rescued, or are they beginning to see their finances crumble after the modification?
Well, there's common perception and there's fact. A lot of people believe loan modifications aren't viable because the early days, the Treasury program only required you provide financials verbally over the phone to the lender to get a trial mod. So hundreds of thousands of people got trial mod who then subsequently either didn't send in their paperwork or could not document the income they disclosed over the phone. As I said earlier, most people don't know really what they make. And most of those trial mods did not turn into permanent modifications. So the perception was HAMP's not working. Well, Treasury changed guidelines. It's now a full document process to get a trial loan. That HAMP report that Treasury comes out with every quarter says 88% of the people who achieve a trial modification get it converted to a permanent modification. At our shop, that number's probably in the 98 and 99% range. Sometimes during the trial period, another life event happens, somebody loses a job, can no longer document the income,
right,
and they may no longer qualify. So you have to have the ability and the capacity to repay the modified payment. That's one of the things the lender's looking for.
Hey, Bill, I got a question. You got to prove, right, through documentation now that you make what you make. So I just recently, I had a self-employed client that has been trying to do this himself, does not show any income on his tax returns, but has bank statements that show $10,000 a month. Will 3 months worth of bank statements satisfy them as far as what your income is, because you got revenue that shows that, or deposits?
Well, they do collect 2 years of tax returns. And the problem is business owners actually have a certain amount of flexibility in this process. You can manage your P&L for tax liability purposes. You can manage your P&L to gross up income. I mean, these are individual decisions that individual people make. Bottom line is you have to show income. It's okay if you didn't make money last year. You have to have a hardship. This is a hardship program. But what the lender is looking for is that the hardship is either fully or partially resolved, because they want to have confidence that if they, lower your rate, modify your payment, take a loss on this loan, that you're going to have capacity to pay on a go-forward basis. Because in a downward real estate market, the last thing they want to do is put off a foreclosure only to have somebody fail on the modification 6 or 12 months down the road and now have to foreclose on a property that's actually worth even less than it is today.
So it's a workout program.
It's a workout.
Let me ask you this, though. So let's say they get put on this workout program for typically, 6 months?
No, a modification period is for 5 years.
No, what about before? Because I've heard of so many things where they say, if you can make your payments on time every month for 6 months, then we'll give you a permanent modification.
That has not been my experience.
No, okay.
There's a lot of misinformation out there.
You're listening to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. 888-814-3335. We've been speaking to Bill Baskin from CDA Law Center regarding loan modifications. If you have any questions at all regarding a loan modification, call Bill Baskin at CDA Law Center, but you can also find all his information on our website at thedinoandnelsonshow.com. Next, we're bringing on another special guest here, Shevy Akason from Evergreen Realty, who's a specialist in short sales and foreclosures, a high-volume realtor down in Orange County, and also a very outspoken and sometimes even argumentative realtor.
How do you like that for an intro?
And I say that he's truly a great guy, but I say that because on the ride up here, boy, him and Bill were just going at it the entire way up regarding what's right, what's wrong between doing a loan modification and Chevy. I don't know if it seems like your opinion was you don't believe in modifications as much because you think it's artificially keeping the values up and keeping people in the home that don't deserve to be there when there's somebody else that can afford to buy it at a lower price, which is what should be happening.
Yeah, there's three major points that I tried to communicate to Bill. Number one was there are a lot of buyers that want to buy these properties, but Bill and I both agree there's a lot of shadow inventory out there. Point number two was a lot of these mods that are actually happening are stacking money on the back end. And like he said, a lot of consumers aren't savvy and don't realize that that's happening. So if you look at it financially, it makes sense to the bank, but doesn't always necessarily make sense to the consumer. What I do like about Bill is he's properly educating his clients and they understand the process. But there are a lot of predatory loan modification companies out there that aren't properly communicating to the client that even though you have a 2% rate, it's only going to go for 2, 3, maybe 5 years. And that money is getting stacked on the back end on the principal. And if their number one goal is just to stay in the property, that may make sense to them. But from a pure financial standpoint, it doesn't always make sense to accept a loan modification. And those people may better off short selling.
Why doesn't it make sense? Because they can only afford it for the next 3 years and not after that?
In my opinion, the banks are accepting the loan modifications that they are accepting because it's in their best financial interest. And when it's not in their best financial interest, they're rejecting those. And so, in my opinion, that's the reason. The bank has the upper hand, as they normally do. So that's my opinion on that situation.
Do you know, it's interesting, though, because when you talk about stacking money up, unpaid money onto the
on the principal balance.
On the principal balance, that's negative amortization. And here you have the same banks that are saying, gosh, these negative amortization loans that were misproperly extended to people is the very reason we got into this trouble to begin with. And it sounds like there's an argument on both sides of the fence coming from the same bank.
I agree. However, right now we're trying to keep people in their homes, and I believe that it's okay to make some adjustments and even tailor a particular product for that individual just so they can stay in the home.
So in your opinion, if you have a $300,000 mortgage, property is dropped to $200,000, I, as the bank, come in and say, gosh, I'm going to allow you to not make these payments right now, but we're going to take that $300,000 balance and we're going to raise it to $350,000, and you just pay us back when you can.
Well, that's actually not how it works. What they stack on the back of the loan is the unpaid interest for the period you miss the payments. To make homes affordable, they have something called, they'll defer principal. So they may take $100,000 off your loan balance, put it as a balloon payment at the end of the loan. But during the next 30 years, you're not paying interest on that money and you're not paying principal. Now, $100,000 today is worth $100,000. $100,000 30 years from now may be the cost of lunch. It's certainly worth less than $100,000 today.
Yeah.
So, this is where the argument started and where we disagreed on the value of this. We're also seeing a lot of principal reductions where they're bringing homes down to market rate. The thing is, it's kind of random. It's very, if you're going to do this only for a principal reduction and not because you have a financial hardship, I would say don't bother. This is a hardship program. So we have to be very careful in the clients that we select.
And that was my third point, the moral hazard the principal reduction brings, in my opinion. You brought up the hardship, and that's a good point. It's not like if my neighbor got a principal reduction of $300,000, then I can just quit paying and necessarily qualify for a loan modification. So those are my main 3 points. So you definitely made a good point there. And then that brought me into a fourth point, which I didn't even bring up before. But, I think Dino brought up a client that wasn't able to refinance into a lower rate. Well, you said that they're basing it, if they qualify for this hardship, they're bringing it to a loan to value of 31% or debt to income. Excuse me.
The front end, the housing obligation cost versus income. 31%.
So my question was, my neighbor gets that because they're over leveraged, where I, should qualify, but I can't lower my rate. Those are the people that I think, if my rate's 7% and I qualify in all other ways, I just don't have a hardship, I think that person should be able to reduce their rate.
And we could speak to that after this break.
Yeah, I can see it brewing because Bill's taking notes here and he's ready to just pounce.
Yeah, I'm seeing the sleeves
I cannot
roll up.
Wait to see what's going to happen here.
Way to stir the pot, Dino.
Yeah, give us a couple seconds for some commercials and we'll be right back. This is the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150.
We have reviewed your application for credit, and at this time, we are unable to approve you. The dreaded credit denial letter. You've had strong credit, but life got in the way and companies are turning you down. The Dino and Nelson Show has a solution with Saving My Credit. Saving My Credit offers highly skilled specialists and a research methodology that is consistently applied to improving your financial situation. Nagging collection accounts, late pays, tax liens, bankruptcies, charge-offs are some of the many examples of negative reporting that leads to credit denial. Saving My Credit applies rigorous energy, experience, and resourcefulness to raise your credit score. Your credit is approved. It would feel so much better, wouldn't it? Contact Saving My Credit at 714-699-4680 or savingmycredit.com. That's 714-699-4680, 714-699-4680, or online at savingmycredit.com. What do you do when your bank simply says no to your real estate purchase? Polaris Equity Group provides an answer. Yes. Our flexible purchase and bridge loan programs are the direct result of our involvement in more than 3,000 transactions of varying size and complexity. Since 1991, Polaris has completed over $500 million in real estate investment transactions using both debt and equity solutions. When the bank says no, call Polaris Equity Group to hear yes. 949-727-4333. That's 949-727-4333. Logical decisions to execute a timely close. 949-727-4333. Or find us online at polarisequitygroup.com.
This is Nelson from the Dino and Nelson Show, and finally, a reputable legal firm. CDA Law Center, a nationally recognized nonprofit homeowner advocate, one of the most trusted firms in the country for helping consumers with their loan modification process. CDA's attorneys have decades of combined experience guiding their clients through the very complex and choppy waters of loan modification. Call 877-499-4435. 877-499-4435. Finally, honest and ethical advice to gain real results. Call CDA Law Center at 877-499-4435 or online at cdalawcenter.com.
Is there really a simple mortgage process? The answer is yes. At First Centennial Mortgage, our customers save money and close their loans quickly because we use the most advanced mortgage technology available and deliver the best rates and terms as a result, offering 30-year fixed rates below 4% and 10-year fixed rates below 3%, all guaranteed on the kickoff of your application. Call 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335 or apply online at thedinoandnelsonshow.com.
The Dino and Nelson Show is brought to you by Best Chauffeured. Best Chauffeured offers personal chauffeur services for corporate events, large and small, and all types of people, not just celebrities. So next time you just want to relax and enjoy the ride, please call on Best Chauffeured Worldwide. It's effortless transportation and first-class service every time. Call 866-323-BEST. That's 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com. Mention KTLK's Dino and Nelson Show and receive a special discount. 866-323-BEST or online at bestchauffeured.com.
Welcome back to the Dino and Nelson Show here on K-Talk AM 1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. 3335 or at the Dino and Nelson Show.
Hey, Dino, this is the only show that has cornermen, towels, ice people ready to come in and work on the cuts. These two guys are going at it.
In the red corner,
exactly.
Bill Baskin,
you know where
standing at 6 foot tall, 205 pounds.
Where we left off was talking about I think the same client that we all speak to in anywhere in the financial market, of somebody that is saying, what about me? I've made my mortgage payments. I'm just trying to get a lower interest rate. I didn't control property value going down and taking that right away from me. What about me? I mean, is that an issue?
It definitely is. And, where I'm coming from is I have a lot of clients. I started a blog in 2006 that basically told people now's not necessarily the best time to buy real estate. And if you're going to sell, there's not going to be any better time than now. And a lot of them have been responsible. They've been waiting. They've been saving money. And now they go out to try to find property to purchase. And so it does frustrate me when I hear about people getting loan mods that weren't responsible, like a lot of the clients that come to us. And now my client doesn't have a property to buy. And a lot of it isn't necessarily due to loan modification. I do agree some loan modification may make sense. But a lot of it's due to the shadow inventory that Bill and I actually agree. There's a lot of shadow inventory. The bank's holding properties off the market and restricting supply. And they've increased demand through artificially low interest rates.
See, I disagree with that, though, because, do you think banks just are sitting there on vacant property?
Absolutely. I mean, Bill just told me an example of someone who hasn't made their mortgage payment in 44 months. And there's only been a notice of default. They haven't foreclosed.
Have they filed for bankruptcy, though?
And dozens of examples.
No. The banks, we referenced the DOJ settlement earlier, and a lot of these banks have held up the foreclosure process to get through this DOJ process, for immunity for all their malfeasance. They've been, the robo-signing scandal was really about falsifying documentation, submitting it to the courts, signed by non-existent vice presidents of various banks. Linda Green is the perfect example of that. There's 400 different signatures, all signed Linda Green as a vice president of 20 different banks.
Well,
so
let me ask you about the rank and file, though. Okay, there's going to be examples on the fringes of people that are benefiting from abusing the system right now. But what about the rank and file, the people in the middle? Are there people that are awarded modifications that simply shouldn't?
Not really. Again, it's ratio based. I think we hit on the thing here, irresponsible borrowers. I've been doing this for 4 years. And when the banks crashed, the bank PR machine went into full overdrive about irresponsible homeowners shouldn't be bailed out. Well, the only irresponsible borrowers were the financial institutions themselves that leveraged themselves 70 or 120 to 1.
Agreed.
And that's how we got here.
I agree with that.
Totally agree.
Homeowners who bought a home, nobody buys a home thinking I can't afford the payment because I'm looking forward to cleaning out my garage in a year when they foreclose on me. I'll go to great pains not to have to clean out my garage.
But in that same vein, nobody buys a home going, gosh, what if it goes down?
Well, right. And for 70 years, the middle class and people have been told this is a great investment vehicle for retirement. This is unprecedented since the Great Depression. And if you read about the Great Depression, it's like reading the headlines today. We're going through the exact same thing, making the exact same mistakes. This is not about irresponsible borrowers. When the credit markets crashed and economies around the world contracted, businesses shrunk. People got laid off. They started making less commissions. They started making less revenue, and they no longer could afford the obligations they had before this crisis. So, this is not about irresponsible borrowers. The people we deal with, doctors, we have lawyers that hire us, business owners, professionals, blue collar workers. They all bought a house they thought they could afford. Their income's gone down because of the recession, and now they can no longer afford their obligations. Well, they didn't do anything to cause this. They bought a home that they thought would go up in value. Everybody was aware there was a bubble going on. We all thought we'd take a step backwards at some point. We just didn't think we'd take 30 step backwards.
Why wouldn't that go just in the bad investment category as opposed to the government rushing in to cure?
Well, if you read every economist in the world at this point, housing is driving down the nation's recovery. Housing drives everything. It drives tax bases for the states. It's the major source of wealth and income for the middle class.
And historically, it's been the leader of economic recovery.
Absolutely. And listen, I'm not ever saying that somebody shouldn't lose their house to foreclosure. Some people can't afford their homes, and they need to move, and they need to move, and they need to take it. But some people have had their incomes reduced through no fault of their own. And all they want is a second chance to get back on their feet to get through this recession so their family can stay in the home.
Are those people only homeowners, or are renters facing the same financial situations as many of the people that own property? And how is subsidizing homeowners through modification programs and not helping the people that are renting property and been responsible, how does that make sense?
Well, renters don't drive tax base.
So it's purely a financial thing for the government.
Isn't everything?
Everything is for them.
I guess that would. I mean, that would be the harsh truth to it.
Renters
I
pay
think
taxes too.
I think that's a valid point in the context of renters are occupants of housing, and their incomes have gone down. They've been
and they don't have a mortgage interest. They don't have a mortgage interest write-off, so they pay more taxes. That also drives the tax base. And I mean, we talked about this on the way up here. If you look at Phoenix, the market drops, so the cost of ownership is much less to own than it is to rent. And I feel like that economy is probably going to recover a lot quicker than the places where the losses are so large to the bank. And because they don't have mark-to-market accounting, they aren't properly foreclosing. Prices haven't come down to where they should. And it's keeping the prices of homes artificially high purely to really just only help the banks.
But doesn't that argument also say you should keep borrowers in their home? Because now it's more expensive to rent because you're kicking people out of their homes because they can't afford their mortgage payment, which is driving up rents. And the people who rent for a reason. They can't afford to buy a home. They don't have the means. So what you're doing is by foreclosing on these properties, you're artificially driving up rents, and now renters are suffering. You know, I kind of look at it like this. Some people need help. Some people don't. We bailed out GM. We didn't bail out Ford. You know, we did it for macroeconomic reasons. When you do a principal reduction on a loan, there's no moral hazard there. Rick Santelli was wrong when he said there's moral hazard bailing out a homeowner. GDPs are driven by this. In Iceland right now, they've gone through a tremendous recession. European banks crashed their economy. They're doing principal reductions. See, the whole wealth effect comes from your equity. You spend money in the economy because you feel like you're wealthier because of your equity. You do home improvement because it's an investment, you put it back. Everybody right now who's underwater, which is 60% of California, is deferring maintenance on their house. They're not out there spending, and it's driving, and it's an incestuous circle, and we're in a
how is giving one person a principal reduction while not giving another person a principal reduction not creating moral hazard? I mean, you said it yourself. You've had examples where someone got a 3% loan mod and the neighbor got a 2%. I guarantee if that person was still in a 6 or 7% loan, they'd be in strategic default because they felt they were entitled to the 2% rate. They were mad that they got it reduced to 3 and not 2. That's the person that's going to, when they hear their neighbor got a 2% rate, that's going to strategically default and make the situation worse. And that is where there is moral hazard.
You know what I hear coming out of this, though, is the fact that it is a complex issue. And there are examples where homeowners should face the reality of moving on from their home, whether that's through a short sale or through a foreclosure process if it elevates to that level, or it should be a situation where I think the common message, whether it's for your real estate practice or for your modification practice, that they go out and seek counsel as opposed to go it alone and trying to figure this out. It's complex.
You know, listen, it's a personal decision. You know, hey, I talk to people. It's like, my dad built this house. I was born in it. I want to keep this in my family. It's been in my house for 3 generations, but I lost my job.
You're listening to the Dino and Nelson show here on K-Talk, AM 1150. Bill, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. You've been a tremendous wealth of information for all our listeners, and for the listeners out there that are in a situation like this, contact us and we'll put you in touch with Bill directly, and you can go over all your options. Like we said earlier in the show, he will know whether or not you can actually get a loan or a modification, I assume. I keep saying loans because that's what I do. So you got to reach us at 888-814-3335. And then also Chevy Akason from Evergreen Realty. Thank you for coming over. Chevy, you got a blog I want to quickly introduce before we go that's gained quite a bit of popularity, right?
Yeah, our blog, OCHousingNews.com. My main writer for that blog started writing in 2006. And again, he projected the bubble based upon rental parity. So we talk about with a lot of our clients, if a client comes to me right now and they know that they're going to sell the property in 2 years, but they want to buy, generally speaking, we're recommending that they don't purchase right now. So we really focus on giving good information to clients and helping them to make the best decision for their family. And, you know, right now is a really unique time. In the last 3 months, the demand has come up tremendously and supply is way down. So if you have a property you need to sell, now is actually, in my opinion, a relatively good time. Bill and I were talking about the shadow inventory that we still think is out there that will eventually be coming to the market. Right now, in most of my listings, I'm getting 6+ offers. And I have buyers that we just can't find property for now. And that's part of what's creating the frustration I have with some of these loan mods. I've had a client that was a veteran, and he had an offer in accepted by the seller, submitted to the bank. And instead of selling to my client who was a veteran who just wanted a house for his family, They end up getting a loan modification. We actually end up never being able to find a property for them in his price range because, in my opinion, because of all the shadow inventory price they're staying artificially high. He's still renting. We still talk once in a while. We play football once in a while at the beach, and he's a good guy. And eventually he'll buy, but we really do need good affordability, and we need the banks to release some of the shadow inventory.
And I think it just underscores that the guests that we have on, the sponsors that we are working with, that we validated their services. I'm listening to a professional real estate agent giving advice to his consumer
and not only
not to
professional,
sell.
the number one real estate agent at Evergreen Realty. For how many years running?
3 years.
Excellent.
So it comes full circle back to the mortgage side as well, because we do have the HEART program, and that is at least speaking to a small segment of people that have made their mortgage payments, have not gone into arrears on their mortgage, and they can refinance without equity into a lower interest rate. And we're seeing those interest rates in the 3s and 4s.
They're
so it's excellent
ridiculously
money.
low right now. I just priced one out the other day on an FHA. It was 3.75% with no fees. It was ridiculous.
And so you have these viable tools that are, along with Bill, can provide another alternative, whether it's a refinance or a modification or a short sale or advice on what to do in the marketplace. Here's a professional panel of resources that the consumer, our listener here at K-Talk, can resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Here at the Dino Nelson Show, we have true professionals that we have checked out, that we work with already, and have testimonies that they are the best in their field. Contact us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. We'll see you next week with our credit repair specialists.